Earlier, archaeologists discovered a shipwreck in Egypt, and it was found that it had ancient Greek treasures. The shipwreck is new for archaeologists who haven't seen such a thing before. Yet surprisingly, the shipwreck is shrouded in mystery. Today, we are unveiling that. Hello and welcome back to the Abandoned Archaeologist again, the channel to learn all about ancient archaeological findings. Today we'll discuss the archaeologists in Egypt have uncovered a shipwreck that may unravel a 2,500-year ancient mystery. But before we begin, to get your attention, we have a question you can answer at the end of the video by watching it. How long did the Ptolemaic Dynasty remain in power? Share the answer in the comments below. Here we begin the video. You Greeks are kids. So an Egyptian priest allegedly told a visiting Greek in the 6th century BC. In some ways, he was correct. We think of ancient Greece as ancient, but it dates back to the Mycenaean culture of the second half of the 2nd millennium BC. But Egyptian civilization dates back much further. It was at its peak in the mid-2nd millennium BC, the New Kingdom, but its roots are dated back to the 3rd millennium BC or even earlier. Though we don't know much about it, Egyptians and Greeks were in contact as early as the 2nd millennium BC. Around 600 BC, when the maritime Greeks were frequent visitors to Egypt, the picture became clearer. Some of it was probably for trade. There was a Greek trading base at Naucratis in Egypt around this time. Some were probably for military services, and some were probably just for sightseeing. By the 5th and 4th centuries BC, Greek intellectuals understood Egyptian culture well. They were aware that it wasn't ancient. In fact, they greatly exaggerated its age and saw it as a source of esoteric knowledge and wisdom. Some thought Egypt had influenced Greece in the distant past, and Greek religion was mostly an Egyptian import. Hellenistic Period. After Alexander the Great's conquests, Egypt was taken over by a Greco-Macedonian dynasty that originated in the new city of Alexandria during the Hellenistic period, late 4th to 1st centuries BC. These Greek pharaohs communicated in Greek, and the nation became more bilingual and bicultural, a trend that continued into the Roman period. The popularity of Egyptian religion, particularly about the goddess Isis, which had worshippers all over the Mediterranean by the 1st century BC, is the most intellectual symbol of the new Greco-Egyptian culture that developed. One thing Egypt and Greece had in common was a love of literature. Greek literature was relatively new, dating from around 700 BC, Homer, Hesiod, though the Greeks most likely had oral literature much earlier. Egypt has one of the world's oldest literary traditions, dating back to the 3rd millennium BC. Ptolemaic Dynasty. The Ptolemaic Dynasty ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries, from 305 to 30 BCE before succumbing to the Romans. Surprisingly, they never became Egyptians while ruling Egypt. Instead, they isolated themselves in Alexandria, the capital city envisioned by Alexander the Great. Both in language and practice, the city was Greek. There were no outside marriages. Brothers married sisters or uncles married nieces. Cleopatra VII, IC 69 to 30 BCE, the last Ptolemaic queen, spoke Macedonian as well as Egyptian and other languages. However, except for the first 2 Ptolemaic pharaohs, Ptolemy I as well as his son Ptolemy II, most of the family was almost inept and in the end only maintained authority with the help of Rome. Ancient Egypt port was a trade hub for Greek ships. Heraklion, also known by its original Egyptian name Thonis and sometimes referred to as Tanis Heraklion, was an ancient Egyptian port city on the Mediterranean Sea, 32 kilometers northeast of Alexandria. The ruins of the ancient city are now located beneath Abu Qir Bay, 2.5 kilometers off the coast under 10 meters of water. A stele discovered on the site indicates that it was once a single city known by both its Greek and Egyptian names. Heraklion was the primary port of entry into Egypt for all the ships arriving from the Greek world long before Alexandria was a glimmer in Alexander the Great's eye. Before Alexander founded Alexandria in 331 BC, Tanis Heraklion was Egypt's largest port on the Mediterranean for centuries. Tanis was originally built on 2 adjacent Nile Delta islands. It was crossed by canals that led to several separate harbors and anchorages. Ferries, bridges, and pontoons connected its wharves, fantastic temples, and tower houses. Shipwreck is one of the ancient Greek treasures. The city was an emporium of trading port, the country's primary port for international trade and tax collection during the late period of ancient Egypt. Then, during the late Pharaonic period, Greeks were allowed to settle in the city, where they quickly gained prestige and social standing. It is now submerged in the sea, 7 kilometers off Egypt's coast. Several earthquakes, followed by tidal waves that caused earth liquefaction, caused a 110 square kilometer section of the Nile Delta to collapse under the sea, destroying the cities of Thonis Heraklion and Canopus. The IEASM rediscovered both cities and blockbuster archaeological finds in 2000 and 1999 respectively. The stunning remains of statues in a temple dedicated to the god Amun or Heracles were discovered in 2000 after succumbing to a series of tsunamis, earthquakes, and rising sea levels and slipping beneath the waves, supposed to be never to be seen again for over 2,000 years. Thonis built a large temple for Khonsu, Amun's son, and Heracles to the Greeks. Amun worship became more popular later on. Shipwreck Discovery. A shipwreck containing ancient Greek treasures from Egypt's Ptolemaic era was discovered recently in the waters off Alexandria. The shipwreck is located in the Bay of Abu Qir in the hollow or lost ancient city of Heraklion or Thonis near Alexandria and dates from the waning days of the pharaohs when the Greek civilization relished the great influence in Egypt. According to experts, the ship sank after being hit by massive blocks from the Temple of Amun, which was completely destroyed during the cataclysmic event that took place during the 2nd century BC. When the disaster occurred, the ship was moored at a pier in the canal along the temple's south face. Unfortunately, the fallen blocks actually pinned the ancient Greek shipwreck to the bottom of the deep canal, which was primarily filled with clay and sanctuary debris. As a result, the shipwreck is buried beneath 5 meters of hard clay in the temple's ruins. The ancient Greek ship was discovered almost miraculously using a cutting-edge sonar prototype known as a sub-bottom profiler. Hellenistic ships of such a type were completely unknown to archaeologists prior to this discovery. Their preliminary research indicates that the hull of this galley was constructed in the classical tradition, with long mortise and tenon joints and a well-developed internal structure. However, it contains elements of ancient Egyptian construction, allowing us to speak of a mixed type of construction. It was a rowing vessel with a large sail, as evidenced by a substantial mast step. In addition, this longboat had a flat bottom and a flat keel, which was very useful for navigation in the Nile as well as in the Delta. Some typical ancient Egyptian shipbuilding features, as well as evidence for wood reuse in the ship, suggest that it was built in Egypt. It had a length-to-breadth ratio of nearly 6:1 with a length of more than 25 meters. A tumulus stretching alongside the northeast entrance canal of the ancient lost city of Heraklion unveiled the remains of a large Greek funerary area shielded with funerary offerings dating back to the first years of the 4th century BC. According to a diver, the tumuluses' stunningly beautiful and well-preserved Greek bases beautifully illustrate the presence of Greek merchants as well as the mercenaries who lived in Thonis Heraklion city, the city that controlled the primary entrance to Egypt at the mouth of the Canopic branch of the Nile. Nearly intact Greek pottery was found. The Greeks were even permitted to construct their own sanctuaries near Amun's massive temple. But unfortunately, the cataclysm also destroyed these, and their ruins were discovered alongside the Egyptian temple. The Temple of Amun's blocks, steels, and statues slipped into the deep canal during a landslide caused by a liquefaction event caused by a series of natural disasters. When they discovered the underwater city in the temple's ruins in 2000, many of the artifacts were in pristine condition. They bear witness to the wealth of Thonis sanctuaries Heraklion. Godio's new discoveries at the underwater site of ancient Heraklion include a Ptolemaic-era galley in remarkable condition, which adds to its incredible underwater archaeological achievements. What do you think about ancient Greek and Egyptian interactions and the discovery of shipwreck dating a 2,500-year-old mystery? Let's know in the comments below. And the answer to the question we have asked is that the Ptolemaic Dynasty remained in power for around 300 years. Subscribe for more such uploads.